Hey, folks, welcome back to the Land Fixer podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Logan Swanson, and we have returning guest, Jason Wollbrink. I don't know, is this your second or third time? I can't remember.
It's been a couple of these. So.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you back. We're going to be talking about some interesting and topical information for land investors. But, folks, as always, if you need land funding for your newest flip, subdivision, entitlement project, anything like that, check us out at www.landpartnerfunding.com or email me at thelandfixer@gmail.com and I will happily assist you. Jason, what's going on in your world?
Hey, Logan. Hey, Land Fixer podcast audience. Glad to be back on here. I think I was on here before talking about like the spiritual side of business. So
That's
we're
right. Yeah.
probably, I guess we could hit on some of that. But
Yeah.
in my world, well, I was running the business remotely from South America, and that's changed this year. I'm actually back in the old US of A for the last few months, which is neat. Changes a few things, brings different sets of challenges.
Yeah.
I yeah, I had more of a tendency. Well, of course, I had to delegate when I was remote, and I'm unfortunately I'm too much of a doer, hands-on guy. So sometimes when I'm back, I'm like, wait a second, I can't do this myself. This is not the so. But good times, good times. Got the family back. Kids are going to a marathon school for the first time, and they're liking that, enjoying that a little bit different experience. But I'm back, and we're still cruising through real estate.
Yeah, I really like, one thing that I've noticed is you like to go to your properties. I feel like every other time I'm talking to you, you're taking your boys out, you're exploring some new property that you're looking to buy or have recently purchased. And I'm curious, do you have any good stories from any of those little adventures?
Oh, little adventures. I'm not certain why I even do that yet. They seem to be like these short lightning bolt trips. But I think, as you and I chatted with before about that mountain project years ago, sometimes it's just something in you, like that manly urge to go and conquer or take new territory. I don't know. So, yes, I have done a couple trips this year on properties. I actually have several properties that were within like a day's drive. So I went on a couple adventures. We actually bought a farm. It's only about 3.5 hours away from my house. And it was a gentleman who passed away, kind of a testament to what not to do with your family. Like he had his own little hunting retreat cabin. And as soon as he died, like there was no sentiment, there was no
Mhm.
sadness over this. Apparently, he didn't treat his kids real well, and his wife couldn't stand it. So they sold it to us within 7 days of him passing, which was
Wow.
a matter of fact. The owner, the widow, she was planning to auction it. The auctioneer, I think he lived out of the area, and he had gotten a mailer about something else. So he reached out to us, and he was just like, "Hey, she wants an offer today." So we bought it. Long story short, really neat piece of property, and it had this old ranch house on it, and it was just full of stuff, like chock full of stuff. Uh, Hunting gear, Field and Stream magazines going back from the 70s all the way up, like deer and turkey decoys, a lot of personal effects and pictures. And it was odd. We went down there, so we got a big dumpster, and I took my sons, and my dad actually invested with me on that. So he went down there just to kind of go on an adventure. And we mowed the grass, and we trimmed the trees back, and we kind of cleaned the whole property out because we just had to clean that out. And there was a ton of tools and a lot of good stuff. We actually brought quite a bit of stuff back, but it was also very, very sad because we were going through a lot of this guy's personal effects. And it was one of those moments my dad and I were talking about, just like you worry about so many things and you accumulate so many things, and then it's over. And someone's going to throw it in a dumpster,
Yeah.
you know, that you don't even know. So that was crazy. One of the things too is I sent my son we actually subdivided that, split it in half. So we took like an ATV and mowers and chainsaws. And so we went out and marked trails and cleaned some of the trails up. And so I dropped a teen boy off at one of the entrances to put a gate in. And this is in the Ozarks. So it's the rockiest soil on earth. So he had like a post, like one of those, I don't even know what they're called, but it's
Post
just like a
driver. Yeah.
long metal. No, he had like a long metal stick that you just like poke
Oh,
and
yeah.
break like a bar and a breaker bar. And then you had shovels and all this. And it took him the better part of 8 hours to dig 2 holes 3 feet deep in this just rocky, nasty, and then mount the gate up. And it was like a becoming of man experience for him. I was like, "You are now." And he's like, "Dad, my hands are torn up, Dad." I was like, "Imagine doing this every day." Uh, so I said, "But tomorrow you'll be sore, but you'll feel more like a man." So that was one. Recently, I went to check on a subdivide project. We have about 5 hours away. I went with a friend and had multiple stops along the way. So we actually bought a barn dominium that the guy kind of left 3/4 of the way finished. So we
Wow.
went out. We had to bushwhack the entrance in with weed eaters and chainsaws and stuff because it's all grown over. And then we discovered like this beautiful. I mean, it's just metal on the outside. But we went in and it's like 2-story, and there's just everything's framed and all the plumbing and all the stuff. And actually, we found all the materials in there. But what was crazy, we started bushwhacking that, and there was this, I don't know if it's ragweed, I don't know what it was in the entrance. We're in the middle of nowhere, like, 3 miles down gravel, like 30 minutes from the closest town. It was just way out there, remote, beautiful area. There's this awesome spring fed creek on the edge of the property. And we pull up in there and we're trying to clear back the entrance. And there's all these saplings growing up around the building. We're bushwhacking and like dragging off into the woods, and it's 100 degrees in the
Oh,
heat, Midwestern heat. So we're just, our clothes are just sopping wet. And we hit some sort of a patch of like ragweed, or I don't even know what it was, but we started, both my friend buddy and I both started having these allergy attacks. And I'm not allergic to anything,
oh
but we
wow.
couldn't breathe. Like we're at the truck and we're like hacking up all this mucus, and we're like chugging water. And finally, we went and just jumped in the creek to get all the
Oh my
ragweed off of
God.
us. So we ended up like taking a change of clothes, and we did a little creek bath out there, and moved on our way. And the final one was, I went to scout a property that I bought from a guy who's actually in prison. It was an interesting one. We had to send a notary into the prison
Wow.
system. And I go down this long lane, 20 acres. It has a lake view, real pretty, quiet area, nice neighborhood. We go back. There's only like 2 or 3 neighbors on this gravel road. Apparently, it's privately maintained by them, and they're the watchdogs. Because as soon as I drive back there, and usually I carry when
Yeah.
I go to these properties, like open carry, but I just left the gun in the truck. It's just no one around, and I'm walking along my property, and this neighbor comes barreling down the road, red faced in this big old Ford with a flatbed. And he's just hot as a hornet. He's like, "What are you doing back here? And who are you?" And and I was like, "I'm just going on a nice stroll on my property that I own, that I don't need any permission from anyone to walk on." But in the end, we had a quick chat, and he calmed down really quickly. And I informed him of the ownership change, and so it was good. I ended up with his business card. He does land clearing, so maybe I'll have him do some work on the property.
Look at
But
that.
it reminded me, it's a relationship business. I also met the other neighbors. Maybe I'll sell it to them. I don't know. So it's a relationship business. So you have to kind of swallow your pride, smile, and remain calm, and talk to people and be friendly. And usually a smile and a wave as they come up. Because my buddy actually told me, he's like, "Oh man, that guy could have done something to you." And I was like, "I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. He's going to be fine." And so actually, it was really easy to defuse the situation. Just a friendly chat. Inside, I wanted to say, "I'm strolling on my
Yeah.
property that I."
You probably thought you were
But
some
on
meth
the
head or something.
yeah, yeah, I could see obviously the truck was nice. It wasn't a meth head or anything, but I was nice, and so he calmed right down. But it just reminded me, it's almost like sales is a daily project. The best currency is relationships. And so I got his card, his contact, and actually I was in the process of like fixing something on title with that, and it's done now. I was just thinking the other day, I should call him and maybe have him do a little cleanup and let him know I'm going to sell it, because he's kind of the safekeeper of that neighborhood.
Right.
That would be a nice courtesy. And maybe he knows someone that wants to buy it, right? Hey, you
Or he
want your
wants
buddy
it.
to buy
Yeah.
it. Maybe he wants it. Great. But so most of the time, like 9 times out of 10, a friendly conversation goes a really long way with neighbors. And the neighbors are a great resource in knowledge about the property in the area.
Oh
So
yeah.
they inform you of a lot.
Yeah. Another thing that stands out to me too is so since I've bought and sold so many pieces of land, and I've visited maybe 10 of them or something. What I've always struggled with when fielding sales calls, like interested buyer leads, is they're asking me to describe the property and I'm looking at it from a GIS map. I'm like,
Hmm.
I see trees over here. And they're like, where's the boundary? And I was like, I don't know. I'll send you an image. But if you've walked the property and you have your own stories about it, that's very compelling. I think that's
Hmm.
much easier, especially with land. You and I think, are both creatives. So when we see a piece of property, we're like, oh, there's a million different ways to use this property. Here's the best building site over here, maybe. We'll just clear this up over here, and that'll give you more space to do something on this side of the lot, whatever. But a lot of people, when they're buying land, they don't know. They don't maybe not be as creative. They may not have the same way to visualize things. So if you've been to the property, walked it, made a couple stories of your own on the property, then it's like so much easier to get someone emotionally connected to one property, especially in today's market where things are maybe a little more competitive. There's more properties that are sort of on market. So if you have a lot that has other lots around it that are for sale, you would benefit a lot from being able to do a little narrative building in the sales process.
The
So I think
narrative
it's a
building is good, and seeing it also gives you some creative vision. I mean, I wish I could see them all. I've done a lot of what you said where I have to narrative build off a deep look at maps, street views, and drone photos. The drone and ground photos helped me a lot back when I
mhm.
would sell a lot of my properties because oh, hey, it has this feature, it has this, that, or the other, and reading the topo maps. But they're always a little different when you get there. A lot of times I'm surprised when I get there. You're like, oh, that didn't look like it had this low spot here, and it's not always happily surprised either,
Yeah, it's like,
no
oh,
matter how much due diligence you do. But I hear you on that. One thing that we've been doing, just as the market has kind of changed, people say, "Oh, it's slowed down, it's dropped." Well, yeah, markets are in cycles. I really think that we had sort of a post-war boom during COVID and after, and that's obviously come back more or less to normal. So it's a little bit less in the last year and a half about like online sales. Yes, having good marketing is very important. Marketing assets, good photography, drone, all that is very, very important. But a lot of it is telling the story on the land. So I'm working more with high quality agents. I don't have them everywhere, but I have a few that are really good. And they'll even suggest to me like where to cut a trail, how to show the property, and they'll take people out there and they know how to show it. So that's huge. And then what we've been doing a lot of, and I'm probably even going to do more, is like what I call light dev. So I have a small subdivide. It was a project I bought. It was about 50 acres. I think it had 6 or 8 lots already split. And then a couple of those lots I split into smaller, the ones that had road frontage. Like went down to like 3 acre lots, which was the county minimum for septic. It's a rural subdivide, so we didn't have to get like plat approvals or anything. But in that, I actually platted out, and then I have a guy that travels for me. He's done a lot of work for me with dozing and clearing. And I actually added another guy to the team who just does mulching with, say,
mm,
on a skid loader. So my guy that has this, he has a small dozer, backhoes, excavators. He's got a brush hog, and he can clean up a lot of grass and brush with that. It goes on the front of a skid loader, but it leaves a lot of the stumps and the sticks there. But that mulcher is just magic, man. That stuff just eats it up and leaves like a mulched path.
yeah,
And a lot of the areas that I work in, it gets very rough, very scrubby. So when you go into this property, this is beautiful property. It's one tier back from a really nice lake, just some vacation homes around. Very nice, nice paved county maintained road. But obviously, you go in it, and it's full of cedar trees. It's really hard to get vision. And not a lot of people have that creative vision. So I actually made a trip to see it and flagged it and met my guy. And then what we did is we just created like a drive-in and about a 1/4 acre clearing on each one. And we don't even do that, I guess, right. The right way to do it is to push everything to the center and burn it. In this case, we kind of push it back into a ditch somewhere out of sight, and he leaves all the big trees. So anything that's over 12 inches and up, he's leaving. So it creates kind of like a little shaded park-like lot, but it's enough when you walk in that you could pull your car in, they could get out of the car and walk, they could kind of walk around. People most likely will want to clear more, but if I cleared out all those trees, somebody might love to have the shade trees around their cabin or their house. I don't know. So I kind of leave it up to them. And I've gotten a very good return on investment out of that over the years. So that's one. And then much more affordable. I mean, that in in an economy of scale, it ends up costing me about $3,000 a lot
Yeah.
on this project. Where if the end buyer hires him to do it, it's gonna cost them probably 8 or 10, and in their mind, it's gonna cost 15 when they're looking at the lot.
Right.
Now that's a big deal. I've got to get so at the very least they have the start, and then when they get a builder, they can probably have him take a tree out, do some leveling. And then I have another guy with the mulcher, and the mulcher is actually a very affordable. It's 1,500 a day, and he'll even travel within reason. And if I pay the travel, up to a few hours away, so it has a pretty good radius. And I've had him do like 10-acre properties where he'll cut a trail system, a drive. He'll clear it. He'll take a bucket, so like he can fix, a little culvert or crossing on a creek. Enough where once again you can pull in. Now that's not more or less a building site because he leaves all the roots and stuff. It's just
Yeah.
eating all the brush down. And then you can go on these trails because in these places, think about your buyers. They're getting tick infested. There's poison ivy out there. Like walking on the woods in the summer months is terrible. And
Oh
I'm an
yeah.
outdoorsman. I don't mind in the fall because there's not as many bugs and poison things and briars. But it can even in the woods and like if you go where there's a lot of ground cover, you get the spider webs in your eyes and
Uh-huh.
stuff. So having a nice open trail is just huge for showing the property. And so I'm not certain like it actually increases the value a lot in that case, a little bit, but it definitely makes it show and it keeps my time on market a little bit lower on properties that show as easy. So I'm actually being a little more liberal in recent months with just assuming I'll do at least a day's work of clearing, if not two, and you can do real wonders in a couple days.
Are you
Um,
trying to budget that into your acquisition, or are you concerned about
yeah,
that?
generally speaking, I'm looking at acquisition, and I'm just assuming we'll do a little bit of work, a little bit
Mhm.
of clearing, a little bit of cleanup. I think the days of just like flipping junk as is and it's hot cakes are probably over. So we're looking at that, and I think in the end buyer's eyes, my thought process, Logan, is more or less how many steps will it take for them to be able to build or to
Mhm.
use. So even a hunting property, they need to put an RV, a cabin,
Park the
a
truck.
slab
Yeah.
cabin, the mobile home. They need something out there. So if I buy something that had an old mobile home, and I've had the guys go in and tear out the old mobile home, but we've got a well, we got septic, we got a power pole, and they can clean that up for a few grand to walk in and see a lot that's cleared, and I've got power there, a septic here, and water there. And I might even say, hey, I don't guarantee the age on this septic. That's up to you to get tested. But in the buyer's mind, there are no more steps. And each of these steps in their mind is quite expensive. So, you're thinking a well is 15 to 30,000. It's a pretty good sized step, power. So they're looking at the least amount of steps. And in my mind, most cost effective way to get closest to that, particularly just, for the attractiveness of the property. Because I think there's more inventory on market. So we need to play that game.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've showed a lot of properties that are treed. I had one subdivision, half the lots were treed, and I was going out there all the time outside of Dallas. And I remember there was one lot that was just all treed, fully treed. There was like no ability to walk in it. And I remember showing it. It was one of the last lots to sell. And I just walk up to the front of it and be like, there it is. I mean, there's not much.
Mhm.
You can go dig around if you want. And it's like, it kind of ruins the whole experience from the beginning. Right. So they're like, oh, if it's hard to even walk through the property and I can't even really locate the corners, this is a project. And it triggers that like, it- the unknown. It's like this is a step that I didn't even think I was going to have to take. It starts becoming more tangible and real how difficult the building process is, which we don't really want to hide from people. But you don't want them to have that emotion when they're walking through the property. You want them thinking about how beautiful it is, and oh, I love that tree over there. So you're immediately putting them in this negative mindset when they show up to the property. But I want to step back a little bit. You said that you've been focusing on hiring qualified realtors. This is something that we do a lot in our business, and it's hugely important. I've heard a lot of different answers on what you're looking for, what qualifies a buyer for you. And I know you're a system guy, so I'm assuming you have some system around it. But what do you do to make sure that you are bringing in an agent or a broker that's going to do a good job? And also, if you have any thoughts on what fair commission is for land brokers, because they're definitely a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. So a good land, not just a realtor. A good land agent is worth their weight in gold, hands down, no questions asked. I'll pay 7% to those guys all day. 7% was kind of the standard land broker commission. I mean, they are a little more flexible recently because, they've also been hit as things slow down a little bit. But 6 to 7% is what I expect to pay. I won't actually barter any less from a solid land broker because I believe in paying people well if they perform well. If I'm looking to barter that commission down, I'm probably looking at a subpar player. So that's my thought process. A little bit different, but I learned that years ago, flipping houses, and I had a mentor that said, I sold a couple houses myself on Facebook, and I've sold probably 100 pieces of land
Yeah.
myself too. But he said, in this world, someone who is a professional and has a team and already is invested in marketing, already has a pro photographer, they already have a system. Why are you going to go and try to create that and compete with that? Part-time people, part-time results. This is a full-time professional player. So I've got a guy who he actually changed brokerages because he didn't like that they were putting more junior agents around him in his
Mm.
area, which I like. I like the fact that he says, I'd rather be the guy in 3 counties. And I'll drive. I'll drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to show a property if I need to. But
Yeah.
when he shows a property, and I've met him at farms that we'll get something under contract. And this is the decent sized stuff I'm going to see. It's probably a little bit bigger, a little higher priced. And probably 3 or 4 times in the last couple of years, he's actually met me. And when he goes to show a property, he has an enclosed trailer behind his truck. And in that enclosed trailer, he's got a UTV, which is like a Cadillac of UTVs. It's got the glass doors, it's got air conditioning. He's got a tablet right there with OnX Hunt app on there that shows where you're at, the boundary lines and all the topography while he drives the property. He's got, trimmers. And if he goes to scout it, he's got an older UTV he takes out with like tree trimmers, and he's the guy. I mean, he's just the guy. And he doesn't show up with if it's on the water, he shows up with a boat and he
Yeah.
puts it in and he takes you to it through the water. Like, he was telling me he's got a lot of expenses in his equipment, fuel, but that's the level of expertise. So this guy's name is Justin. And with Justin, if it's in his region, I know it's going to sell. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of time. And he's accurate on his data too. How to find them? It's a challenge to find him. I want to say that Justin's a unicorn, but there are a few others that I have that are also players. I recently just had to fire a guy that just wasn't performing.
Yeah.
In new markets, it's kind of a crapshoot. There are certain things that we look at. The first thing would be we see that they have accounts on all the land platforms.
Yeah.
Number one,
Big one.
MLS is actually performing better than the land platforms right now, I believe, in my
Hmm.
opinion. I dropped my land platforms for my direct sales, but I check to see the quality of their listings. I see the quantity of listings. Obviously, people know who the players are, laws of economics. And so if they have multiple listings, and then we do a little, just kind of like back, I guess in the dating world, they do like Facebook stalking or Instagram stalking of people. You kind of stalk their social media. We kind of do a little land.com stalking
Yeah.
of the agents. And we see, what does the drone photos look like? Like, a good player only takes photos on a sunny day, and they look to take them in the early hours of the evening where they get the best angles.
Yeah.
And you can see that right away in the quality of the photos, the quality of the listing description. And then a simple one is call them. Do they answer their phone? And if you leave a message, do they call you back the same day? So those are all key things. Like, will they answer? When I've been out scouting with this guy, he's taking calls and he's like, I'm so sorry, I got to take this call, but if I don't take it, I'm not going to get their business. He's out in the middle of the woods. I don't know what kind of satellite internet he's got on his phone, but he's taking calls. And I think I'm not bothered a bit by that
Yeah.
because he's taking the calls from my buyers, right? So that's an easy way to do it. And then really you just have to kind of give them a trial, go ahead and trial and error,
Hmm.
right? That recently I had one listed and it was up for a few months, and he didn't first he didn't get it on the MLS, then it got up there. Then on Zillow, the location was wrong. It was several miles away. And there was a couple other listing errors, and we let them know, and they didn't change it. I had another property where, the photos were old. I was driving by it myself. I took more drone photos, and I sent them to an agent. I said, hey, I got spring photos because, when you buy something in the winter, there's no foliage. In the spring, there is.
Yeah.
Hey, can you update this? He didn't update the listing after like a month.
My
And so I'll
God.
give him the benefit of the doubt and a couple of touches. And then it's like, I've nudged you. Now I'm going to push you out the door.
Yeah.
John Maxwell always says there are people that are energy drains you get
Hmm.
in teams with. And he said those type of people are the ones that you always have to push, but you really just want to push them off a bridge.
Right.
Which is hopefully that doesn't happen. But I mean, you have to test them and you have to see.
Yeah, I think that's good. A few things that we do is like just verify they'll actually show the property. That sounds mundane, but a lot of realtors won't, especially if they're house realtors. They're like, what do you mean show it? It's just a piece of land, you know? I like it when they will do the drone footage because that's an expense that you can save on.
Mhm.
So that's something I'm always asking. I mean, I've paid a lot of money for drone footage in the past. I've paid
Mm.
over $1,500 if it's remote, you know. So that's a big deal to get someone who's yes takes good drone footage, but will do it themselves and doesn't hire it out. And if they're willing to take guidance on how to like what aspect you really want to visualize or show, some feature of the property you want them to hover over, whatever, because if they can't take directions, again, that's not a good issue. That's not a good thing either. So yeah, right now, I mean, we're doing the same thing. Almost everything that we're doing is being listed and sold through brokers. Now, I'm curious, have you worked with any of the big brokerages? We just started doing our first sale with Whitetail Properties, and they're like a big old boy, you know?
Yeah, couple. I focus more on the man rather than the company. Your bigger brokerages do probably have a little bit bigger budget, but most of them at a minimum are on the same platforms. It seems like it's less online out of state sales right now and more local or focused searches. Like I'm looking in that part of the state to buy a hunting property, therefore I'm finding you and your listing. So I haven't focused more on that. I do know that at least in one of the states that I work, like Mossy Oak and Whitetail, almost always they seem to have a lot of listings, but they're sitting, they're not selling.
Hmm.
And they almost high anchor the market because they always seem to be about 20% above what everyone's selling for. So I'm like, I don't know if their data is slow or their customers just want a pretty penny. And my agents will always tell me, like, oh yeah, look at their listings. I mean, yeah, you'll see their listings at that price, but they're not selling at that price. And they're non-disclosure states. Of course, it probably like I said, it's probably just more agent specific, really. I mean, you almost have to, like Harvey Specter used to say, always play the man.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we talked a little bit about market, and I'm curious. I think we're starting to see the Fed rate drop a little bit. Are you anticipating any sort of uptick in land sales or anything that you think will be coming in the short term?
I'm actually reading a book called The Bitcoin Standard, and it's all about finance, the history of money. It goes really into like problems with fiat currency and such. But one thing I just read this morning, he was talking about how in our current system where capital is controlled by governments, what interest rates do. And basically, when interest rates go up, they incentivize people to save money and not spend because they can get a CD or put it on in T bills. And when interest rates go down, they're incentivizing business owners to buy new equipment, people to invest. And so obviously, any kind of drop in rates is going to incentivize people to invest. I think we probably need to see a pretty significant drop.
Yeah.
I'm I've been also playing around with. I don't know if you ever seen the Benner cycle chart. Have you ever
Uh,
looked at that? There was a farmer in Ohio in the 1800s, and he created this thing called the Benner cycle. And it
hmm.
has, you'll have to Google it. It's
Yeah.
this old looking chart. It's got these like triangle graphs on it. And basically it has 3 points. It has like years of crashes and economic crises. And it has good years, years to sell goods, and bad years, years to buy goods. And he mentions corner lots on there. So it's been accurate over 100 years within like a year or two on the
Wow.
cycles. And so I think if you look at, I don't know, there's one that 2019, I believe he had estimated a crash year, which it was actually 2020. COVID happened and it dropped all the markets. I think even 1929, I think his was like within a year or two on the crash. And this was like in the 1800s using past empirical data that he had. But what caught my attention is he mentioned 2023 as a down year. And we actually started to see a slowdown in real estate, particularly land sales, probably mid-year. I would say 2024 was a lot slower,
Yes.
us in particular. This year we're selling, but it's funny because there's stuff that I think would sell quick that doesn't. And then there's stuff that I don't expect to sell quick that sells quick. So I haven't really figured out the tracking of it. But my thought on that is I think that there's also some adjustments with what's happening in government and the economy. I think it's painful. I don't really want to go into the specifics, but I do believe that it will move us in the right direction, but it's going to take some time. Like anything economic takes some time. So my projection is think things are probably slow right now. It's a time to have faith, to narrow down on your marketing, to buy better quality products, which is properties.
Yep.
Also, look at yourself as a traditional. Are you developing? Are you building? What kind of improvements are you bringing to the end buyer? And have that in your toolkit. And then I think it will be increasing next year. As to what the rates will do immediately, I don't know. I guess this fall, usually fall is a pretty good sales cycle. So
Hmm.
we've sold a few properties. We have a few that are under contract that close like in the next 30 days. So we're actually doing another marketing campaign, kind of like another buying. But I do my stuff in cycles. I buy a batch, I sell, I buy. I'm always trying to fix that so it'll just be constant, and it never really works out that way. Money in, money out. But for the investor that's out there, it's a time to look at our data better. It's a time to improve your systems, your marketing. A lot of guys are doing one-touch marketing. I mean, that's just not going to work in this market.
Yep.
And keep cruising. And I think the people that hold on and diversify and improve and grow, I think you see who the real players are in the down markets. Everybody's a champion when it's a boom and it's
Yeah.
easy, right? Flash in the pan. But I always say, like at the conferences we used to go to and stuff, you know how it is. Like there's always a new speaker every year who did like one good deal. And with real estate, you could do one good deal and make some real money. And it might have just fallen in your lap. But I always say, I want to see the guy that over, 10 years has consistently performed. Like
Yeah.
that's the guy that I want to teach me because he knows how to have a staying power.
Yeah. And according to Benner, in
Mhm.
2026 will be years of good times, high prices, and it's the time to sell stocks and values of all kinds. So,
Yeah. So if you look historically, he's about a year behind. So I'm thinking that might start like mid to the end of the year, leak into 2027. Who knows? I was playing around with ChatGPT with market data this morning, a housing history of cycles, comparing it with this, trying to create some sort of a prediction. But in the end, the idea is just keep cruising,
that's right.
keep the
Stick it
faith,
out.
keep cruising, stick it out, and put your nose to the ground and see what's happening. Each market's a little different too.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us again. We're going to have to wrap here. Did you want anything from our audience? Do you want them to check anything out? I know you got a Facebook group and some other things.
I do have some course and coaching stuff coming quick. I'm not going to announce it yet, but I am doing it on a limited basis, some one-on-one coaching, only specifically for people who have already done a few deals. So, I mean, if somebody's really hungry to do that, they might reach out. Like I said, it's pretty limited. And hopefully the next few months I'll have a few other resources that'll be coming out.
And you are on Facebook, so they can search Jason Wollbrink and find you there.
Yep. Look,
I would definitely say that why don't you launch a guru course? Just pump out
come on.
one more land flipping guru course that tells you how to get rich overnight, make $10,000 passive a month in 2 weeks. That's what the market needs, Jason.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe I could make like 100K a month just selling courses.
Oh, isn't that sweet? Oh, you'd love to do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us, folks. If you need any funding for your land deals, land flips, entitlement projects, what have you, go to landpartnerfunding.com, check it out, or email me the landfixer at gmail.com, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.